as a result of progressives applying constant pressure on the Democratic Party establishment, it's been the case that more and more Democrats have come around to the idea of single payer. Now, obviously, there's quite a bit of holdouts left, but when you look at the House, more than half of House Democrats have now co-sponsored H.R. 676, which is John Conyers' bill that would bring about a Medicare for all system. And we're now starting to see progress in the Senate as well. So recently, Elizabeth Warren and Jeff Merkley came out in support of single payer, and they came out swinging, and we have some more news on that front. So another senator decided to come out in support of single payer, and this was actually pretty surprising to me. So Senator Kirsten Gillibrand decided to endorse single payer. So as Matthew Raza of Salon explains, Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York has come out in favor of a single payer healthcare system. When her senior advisor Glenn Kaplan was asked by CNN about whether the junior senator from New York supports single payer, he responded yes, a follow-up to Gillibrand's response to a healthcare question at a Facebook Live hosted by Democratic Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. Healthcare should be a right. It should never be a privilege. We should have Medicare for all in this country, Gillibrand replied. So make no mistake about it, this is fantastic news, and Kirsten Gillibrand undoubtedly is doing the right thing by endorsing Medicare for all. However, I'm going to put on my my trusty tinfoil hat here and advise people to be cautiously optimistic, because we've been screwed over by the Democratic Party on numerous occasions, and Kirsten Gillibrand, in spite of this endorsement for Medicare for All, we know that coming out in favor of single payer currently is the politically expedient thing to do, especially if you're going to plan to run for president in a couple of years. And Kirsten Gillibrand is probably just more politically astute than most Democrats, and she acknowledges that she's not going to get progressives to get on board with her campaign if she doesn't support single payer. Now, the second reason why I think we should be skeptical is because even if she may be in favor of single payer symbolically, she's still a corporate Democrat who continuously does fundraisers with the big banks and Wall Street. So if she can be bought off by the big banks, then why shouldn't we expect her to be just as easily bought off by the health insurance industry? So I mean, if she comes out in favor of single payer, why shouldn't we expect a gigantic health insurance company or lobbying firm to come along and just buy her off, and then she'll change her position? So that's why I'm skeptical. And then the third and final and most important, I think, reason to be skeptical is because Kirsten Gillibrand is not the first Democrat to come out and symbolically support single payer, because there's a ton of Democrats who, although they admit to supporting single payer, at least symbolically, well, they're not in favor of it operationally. So what I mean by that is we have someone like Nancy Pelosi. So she's a Democratic Party leader. She claims to be in support of single payer, yet she won't co-sponsor H.R. 676. So if you support single payer, why wouldn't you co-sponsor a bill that would push us further in that direction towards single payer? Well, it's because she's raised millions of dollars from the health insurance industry. And it's not just Nancy Pelosi. So Anthony Rendon, the House Speaker in California who single-handedly killed single payer, he also claims to be in favor of single payer healthcare. And we all know how he really feels about that, because he shelved the bill at least for the rest of the year. So there's all these Democrats now who are saying, yes, healthcare should be a right, like Tom Perez, and they're coming out in support of single payer. But for me, I don't want to hear them just talk the talk. I actually want them to walk the walk. Now, thankfully for people like Kirsten Gillibrand and Jeff Merkley and Elizabeth Warren, they're going to have a chance to prove that they support single payer. So, according to The Hill, Bernie Sanders will be finally introducing his Medicare for All bill after the Senate debates the Affordable Care Act. So, once that happens, we'll know where these Senate Democrats actually stand. If Kirsten Gillibrand really does support single payer, then she'll co-sponsor Bernie Sanders' bill, as will Elizabeth Warren and Jeff Merkley, because Bernie Sanders previously introduced the Medicare for All bill back in 2013, and it got 0 co-sponsors. So that's why I'm skeptical not just of Kirsten Gillibrand, but especially Kirsten Gillibrand, but also of Elizabeth Warren and Jeff Merkley, because if they really had been on board with single payer, then they would have co-sponsored Bernie Sanders' bill back in 2013. But, you know, I'm willing to give them a chance. If they can prove to us that they support it and really do so by co-sponsoring this bill, then we have a reason to be optimistic. But until then, I'm going to be a little bit skeptical, and forgive me for being skeptical. I mean, if you don't like that I'm skeptical and if you think I'm being unfair to the Democratic Party, that's tough, because they've shown that they don't necessarily care about what we think so long as their donors approve of what they're doing. So they're going to have to show us and not tell us. Co-sponsor Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All bill, and I'll believe you. And if you do that, Kirsten, then you went up hugely in my book. You will absolutely, you'll have repaired your image with me at least a little bit, because there's still a lot of problems with you that I have, namely the way you are just glued to your top dollar donors in Washington, D.C. So you're going to have to move away from that too if you really want to appeal to progressives. But I mean, hell, if you're in support of single payer, that's a huge step forward for the party and the country. So look, like I said, co-sponsor the bill and show us that you support single payer. And then we have a real story.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.